Let's dive into the Git basics now. At the moment we have our empty project folder, which doesn't contain any files, and we also know that Git is globally installed on our machine. We can check this with git -- version, we know this already, so that's what we have. So basically Git is available. Let's now see if it also works in our project. For this, we can create a first project file. So we navigate right here, click new file, and now call it maybe initial commit, because it will become our initial commit. .text, so a simple text file here. And this text file can contain some, text. Let's say our first step in Git, like this, and let's save it. At the moment we have installed Git on our machine, so let's maybe try out one Git command to see what we can do now with this file, with this project. We already saw a Git command a few seconds ago. This was this git -- version command, and it showed us that Git commands always work with Git at the beginning and then, additional information about which command we want to run right here. A typical and very helpful command in Git is git status. Git status always gives you information about your working directory. The working directory is the project folder with all the project files in it. We had a look at that in theory already. Now we can enter git status like this, and if we do so, we get an error message. We don't have a Git repository in our current project folder, so in the Git basics folder, or in any of the parent directories. Let me bring this back to your mind in theory quickly. Because on this slide, we kind of had the situation. We said that Git consists of our working directory with all our project files on the one hand, and of this .git folder, this hidden folder, which is our so-called repository. And the repository contains additional data, but the most important ones for us are the staging area with this index file and the commits in this objects folder. Now, in this structure is required if a project should be managed by Git. If we quickly go to our project folder here, and there go to view and show our hidden items, you see that we only have the initial commit text file. We don't have a .git folder, therefore this at the moment is not a working directory, it's just a plain folder, and we also don't have such a repository. To turn our project into a working directory and to add this .git folder, we have to run another git command. We have to initialize the repository, and we can do this with git init for, initialize. If we do so, we see that we have the confirmation here that this repository was initialized, and we also get the information right here to the left in our integrated source control in Visual Studio Code. We won't dive into this part of VS Code at the moment. Therefore, to avoid any confusion at this stage, we go to View right here, Appearance, and there close this activity bar. This makes it easier to avoid confusion here. We'll dive into the Git features without this helper at this point of the course. However, with the initialized Git repository, we now have our working directory, and if we switch again back to our folder, you can see that in this folder, we now have this, hidden .git folder. Therefore, this is our repository. This and all other files and folders right here are now a working directory. With that out of the way, we can now add our initial commit right here to the staging area, and then create our first commit. Now again, sounds a bit confusing. Therefore, let's again use git status as we previously tried it. And now we get some important information. First, we are on the master branch. Branches will be covered a bit later in this course. For the moment, we can just say that inside our project, we have one so-called branch, this master branch, and this master branch contains all our commits. So it's basically a folder containing all the commits. It's not a real folder, but I think it's easier to remember that for this moment. So let's take this as given. The next information is that we don't have any commits yet, so no snapshots are stored in our project here in this master branch, but we have untracked files right here, and this is our initial commit text file. That's the file we created, so we see with our git init, Git is now aware of these untracked files in our working directory, but we now have to add these untracked files to our staging area. How can we do this? Well, we get the information down here. We can simply use git add right here. With this, our files will be tracked. And this, in other words, means these files or this file here is now part of the staging area. To add a file to the staging area, we need another git command, and this is called git space add. Now add can be written in different ways. The most common ones are either git, another reference to the files we want to add to our staging area. So for example, git commit.txt. With a space, we could add other files we want to include. Or we simply use git add, now a space and a dot. This will simply track all our files in the project folder, and with that, add these to the staging area. That's what we will do at the moment. Doesn't make a difference as we only have one file either way. So let's do this. And now let's again use git status. Let's see. Now we see, again, we have no commits yet, but we have changes to be committed. And specifically, this is the new file we added to our staging area. So that's important to keep in mind. If we go back to the slide one last time, what we did now is we took our single file, used git add to add it to our so-called staging area, and now the next step is to use another command, this is git commit, and then finally to add it as a commit in our objects folder in a repository. This will finally create our snapshot. So back in the project, let's now commit this file, and to do so, we type git once again. You know how this game works in the meanwhile. Now we take the commit command, and now a space. Now -m simply stands for message, so each commit has a specific message to make clear what exactly changed with this commit. And you add this message with quotation marks, and here you can simply type added first.txt file, maybe like this. If we confirm this, we get an error. So this is not working because Git wants to know, well, who we are. Specifically, we have to add an email address and our username. This is our account identity, as you can read right here. So it's very important to add this so that other people know who created this commit. Otherwise, it would become, well, kind of a mess if anybody randomly and anonymously would add commits. Therefore, it's important to identify yourself. We also get the command up here that we have to use, so git config once for the email and the second time for the name. You can omit this global part right here. This would then simply add your credentials to this individual Git project. With the global part being added, this will mean that your credentials are stored for all projects on your machine. That's also what we will go for, so we can quickly copy this right here, paste it down there, and now enter your email, please. I'll do the same for myself here. And now again, use this command, but this time not for the email, but for the name. And here we enter our name. And if we confirm this, we see nothing because of course we again have to commit our changes. So let's add git commit -m added first text file. And with that, we now created our first commit, which now got confirmed down here with this message. So this was our first step in here. We created this commit, but so far we cannot find out too much about this commit. So we should dive a bit deeper here. So what about this commit? Well, let's first clear this here and let's run git status once again. In git status, we can see we have nothing to commit. Working tree or the working directory, I refer to both interchangeably as I said, is clean. So that's nice, but where is our commit now? Well, we have a command in Git which gives us access to all our commits in our current branch. I said that we are currently in this master branch. The command I'm referring to is git space log. This one right here. If we do that, you get some information here. The most important information here is this commit ID up here. This is a unique ID for each commit you create. So with this ID, you can refer to exactly this commit. This makes it easier later to specifically load or check out, as it's called, a specific commit. Besides that, we get information about the author. That's the information we just added in the last lecture. And you get information about when this commit was created. And you also get the info about the commit message that we added to this commit. So that's nice, but it's only one commit, right? So let's maybe change our project a bit to have at least a second one, and then we'll have a look at this once again. So let's now create another file, maybe with our second commit.txt to be in line with this a bit. And here we simply add the text. This is our second commit. And save this. Now we know how things work. If we now again run git status, right? You see that we have untracked files once again. So Git is now aware of our initial commit text file. We didn't change a thing in here, so it knows this file and it's not untracked. So we have the latest status of this file tracked in our staging area, but we have created this new file, secondcommit.txt. Therefore, we have to run git add once again, and now we can refer to this file individually with secondcommit.txt. Let's do that. If we now run git status once again, you see that we have a new file which contains changes we can now commit, and to commit changes, we once again run git commit -m added second text file in here. We did that, all right. So let's now jump back to our git log and dive a bit deeper, because here we can now see both our commits, right? We can see the latest commit always on top right here, also again identified by the message. We can see the date and so on. And here we have our first commit. Now the cool thing about version management now is that if we want to go back to our previous commit, we can simply copy this ID, now type git, and now to load a specific commit, I call it load right here because it's actually called to check out a commit. That's the Git terminology. So you check out, right, a specific commit, and you simply add the ID. If you do so, you see something interesting. You see that our second commit up here, which was open, is deleted, so it's no longer available. But we are back at the status we had when we created our first text file. But where is our second commit now? Was it deleted? No, it was not. If we go back to git log, the second commit is also not here. So did we lose it? No, we didn't lose it. You remember that we are in the so-called master branch. And if we now simply run git check out, and now not the commit name, but the branch name we are currently working in, well, this is the master branch, then suddenly our commit is back. And if we once again run git log, we are back with both of our commits. Now this was confusing at this stage, right? Therefore, in the next lecture, we'll dive deeper into branches, because to understand Git, you have to understand the working directory, the repository, commits, and branches.